This is where we stopped in the last session, where we had to talk about test field a lot. That was a lot, right? Now we are going to another critical point. From this test field alone, you can create your own login and sign out pages and be able to control stuff, right? Now we are going to, after you log in, what is the next thing? So the next thing that we need to see is the interface where there are buttons at the bottom. When you press on those buttons, you navigate from one screen to another. Those bottom buttons that work with the screens switching, we call them button navigation bar in Flutter. So we are going to create a new file that will handle that for us. So there's going to be a general screen that will host all the major screen that you want to put on each button screen. So I think when we do it, then you'll be able to get what we mean. So first, let's create a new file. Let's call it nav.dat. Nav.dat, right? So let's do it should be a stateful widget because there are going to be some switching thing that we'll be doing. And then we call it my navi. Let's say my main, or let's say main navigator screen, right? It's going to be the one that will take all the screens that will create. And we know why these things are here, this error, because we didn't import Flutter material. Now we have it. Okay, so where do we start from? We need to change this one to, because it's going to be a screen, we need to change the container to scaffold. Okay, so we now they have the scaffold open. Now inside it, they are going to be this. We are going to have the body, generally no app bar, and then we are going to have bottom navigation navigation bar here. So these are the things that we need to have a body, right? Before we get to the body, we need to go back to the top of the override function. Right, let me minimize this thing a bit so that, okay, so we are going to have so within this space, yes, within this space, on top of the override, within this space, this is where we put most of the variable that we need to work with, right? Now when we come to the bottom navigation bar, we need to have some things. So if you have a lot of screens that you want to use on the bottom navigation, but what you need to do, you need to use those screens. So we need to put screens together in a list. So we need to put them in a list. So that will like it's going to be a list of each screen is like a widget. So the data type for this list is going to, and we call them screens equal to, it's going to be a list, and then we end it here, right? So it's a list of widgets because each screen, each class is a widget in general, right? And then that's a data type for this screen variable. That screen variable is going to be a list. We work with list, and we know that this is how to initiate a list. But then for us to work with it, you need to be able to call the screen. The screens that I'm going to use are the one we used before, right? I had a home screen, I had a home 2 and a home 3. We used this before when we were doing page navigation. So I'm going to use those screens as my main stuff, right? So you can create other screen if you want, but I'm going to use this default one. So I'm going to do call the home screen. So this one I'm going to call it here. It's going to be one of the screen, home screen. This is it, right? And then the next one is home 2, right? So I'm going to home, it's in my list, home screen 2, home screen 2, this is here. And then home screen 3, which is here. You see, so I have this list already, this list of screens already. So these are the ones I want to use as my major screen on the bottom navigation bar, right? Okay, this is what we have. We have the screens together now. Now, aside the screens, the next thing is to worry about the index. You see, each list is a list. So for you to get items in a list, we say we use index. So this is index 0, this is index 1, and then this is index 2. The position of each item comes with an index automatically when we are working with a list. So what we need to do is on top of this, we need to index, so selected index variable, selected index variable. So when you click on the button, it needs to lead you to a screen, right? And then you have to take care of this index that is selected at that time. Selected index, let's call it selected index, equals to 0. Let's start with 0. 0 means that the selected screen at the beginning is going to be the first one in the list. This is screen 0, 1, 2. So when we start, the first one that you see is going to be the index 0, which is this first one, right? So now, when we select the screen, what we need to worry about also is that, okay, after you select, then something to switch. We need to write a function, right? Function to switch the screen when a new index screen is called, right? So that's what we need. We need to write a function. That function is going to return nothing for us because it's just going to, so we call it change screen function. So this is going to take the variable, a parameter, right? Int, we are going to take the new index that is going to be selected. So when we select a particular screen, right, a particular button, what happens is that it will come out, it will pop up the index, the new index that you have selected. And this function will take that index and do the switching for us. To do the switching, we have to call the set state. This is set state, right? You select this one, not set state. Then inside it, we are going to stay the selected index, that we have here. We are going to give it the new index, right? You see, this is the selected index that we are working with. That is what this one is keeping the index in each list here. But then when we take this function will take the new index that we will click when we are clicking on the screen, right? This new index will enter this particular switch function, and that switch function will use it and just update that, okay, selected index, take the new index that the person has selected, and then make sure you switch it. And so this is function is going to be like a switch. Is the one going to be doing the switching for us, right? So the set state is because we want to update in real time, right? If you want to see the change immediately, without the set state, you will not be seeing the effect immediately. So we needed that, right? So yeah, so this is the function. So this place is good for us. Now, so we see what we did. We need a variable called selected index, and then we call all the screen that we want to use in the order that we want them to be to appear, and then we now write a switch function that will do the switching from one screen to another. Okay, so now with that set, now we are ready to go into the build function now. Everything we did so far is outside of the build. Now we go into the build function. Now we go to the body. Now for the body, inside the body, we are going to call that screens variable that contain the list, and then it's going to be, for example, let me do this, comma. So what happened is that this is the body, right? This is the main body of the screen scaffold that we'll be working with so far. What actually shows here? So what actually shows here should be something that's here. So it's going to focus on, so we are doing that, okay, for the body, go to the screens variable and pick that index. So this is the screen variable, right? This is the screen variable. Yeah, and it's going to pick the index. So you need the 0, index 1, index 2. So for the body is going to be go to the screen and pick that index 0, right? That'll be the first screen all throughout, right? But the screen's index will be changing. When it is changing, it will be changing this one, right? In this one. So we want this one to be the one controlling, to be looking at this one. So our body, instead of entering screen 0, we need to actually enter selected index, right? This selected index is the one that will be here. And then when we update this one will give us the right index that we want to show at that point automatically, right? Okay, now, so that's the body. That's basically the body. And then you worry about the screen. The main screen, you go and prepare them elsewhere. But for this particular side, you just be switching between them. Now, we need to worry about the button that we put in at the bottom. We need to worry about the button that we need to put at the bottom. So first, right now, let me go and call the screen. Let's see what we'll see right now. Let's see what we'll see right now. The name is main navigator screen, right? I'm copying that. I'm going to my main. Inside the main, I'm changing that to the one that we just created, right? It's not imported, so let's import it. It has been imported now. Let's see the whole screen and see. Okay, it shows page 1, right? So this is what we have page 1 now. but we need the bottom. We don't want to be using this button to switch them, but okay, we want to be using the various screens, various buttons here, like on WhatsApp interface. You click here, you click, the screens are changing. So now for that, we need to go back into our main navigator screen and we go into the body. That's when the bottom navigation bar actually comes in. So aside the body, we have another thing called another argument called bottom navigation bar. This one, bottom navigation is small b, and then followed by bottom navigation bar, which is with capital B, right? Okay. Now, what does this bottom navigation bar take? It take the items. It take bottom navigation bar items, right? So it's going to be a list, and that list we are going to make it like this, right? So it's going to be a list of items. So what happened is that we need to say we need the each of them is going to be bottom navigation bar item. See the difference? It's bottom navigation bar item, right? This is bottom navigation bar, and open it is going to take items, and in the items each item is going to be bottom navigation bar item, and then there's a default icon that you need to supply, right? So for icon it's going to be icon into bracket icons dot, let's say, home. So that's the first one. Now you need not to forget to add a label. So the label is home, right? That's the label that you need to write there. We need to put there basically, right? For now, let me refresh and see what we'll have. Yep, it's not true. Items length greater or equal to 2. The item length should be greater or equal to 2. It means that you cannot have just one item. It should be at least more than one, right? So we are going to create a new one, right? So let's copy this one. I'm copying this, and then in the next item, Control V. I'm not going to use home. Let's say search. Let's say this next one is a search icon, and so this one we are not going to call it home. We are going to call it search, right? Okay. So now let's refresh. So you see, we have home, and then we click on this one. Nothing is happening here yet, right? We have home here at the bottom, and then we have the search button here, and it's not being selected yet, even though we are clicking on it, right? So there is just home selected. These are the first one, this is the second one. When you click on this one, the next one should also appear. But then that's not what we want. We are working with three screens. So the thing is that we are having three screens here. 1, 2, 3. So you need to make sure that the bottom items also match in that order, right? So the second one is going to be a search as an example. The next one, let me control V this one, is not going to be home. Let's say it's going to be profile, right? So for profile, you say person, icons dot person. So person 2, yeah, I selected person 2. Let me say profile. Okay. So this guy give us the profile now. So let me refresh to and see what we have. So you see you have home, search, and then profile. Home, search, and profile. So now these are the bottom navigation items that we are seeing here at the bottom, right? But then we need to make sure they are responsive now to the screens. You need to make sure that the number of items that you have here is equal to the number of screens that you are putting in the screens, right? Because this body is going to be responding to that. And when you click on this button, when you click on the buttons here, automatically they will update the index, right? They need to update the index. So what we need to do is that in the bottom navigation bar before the items, right, we need to add the current index. We need to supply the current index here. How do we do that? There's another argument called current index, right? It's going to take the selected index that we have at the top there, because it's that selected index variable, the one you have at the top. So this current index is default. It's an argument that you need to supply when it comes to the bottom navigation bar itself. But this selected index is the one that we are using to control everything. You see, selected index is also here, the screens, and it's the one that we are preparing here, right? Because we are always going to use this switch to update them, right? So we need to also let the the bottom navigation bar to also know about our switch. We need to tell it to also know about our switch, right? So what we need to do is that in the bottom navigation bar, after the current index, you need to give it on tap. Once you tap on it, something should happen. So what we're going to do, we are going to supply the switch function here, change screen. You don't need to bring the bracket here. You don't need to bring the bracket in front of it, right? So that's change screen, just the name. You need to match the name that you have here. You see change screen where function here, and then that's what we are supplying. So the bottom navigation bar needs your current index variable that will be switching, right, in order to work with. And then the bottom navigation bar also need the switch function, and then we have to know the list of the items. This is where we just show these ones are the ones showing here at the bottom, right? So now let's refresh and see everything in action. Okay, so it shows here. So if I click on this one, you see it changes. Click on this one, it's also changing. So you can see the change at the top here. If I click on this first one, is page 1. Click on this one, is page 2. Click on this one, it is page 3, right? So now these guys are responsive to the various screens, right? Remember, each screens I prepare them separately, right? I prepare them separately. Where is it? This is prepared separately. This also prepared separately. I'm just grouping them together into a main function. And then what I did was I explained everything that I need here, why I needed this. I need a selected index, and then I have a screen and have a switch. These three are fundamental. You have a switch function like this format, selected index and this. Then you go inside the body, and the body you update it like this so that the screen will supply a screen from itself using the index. So that's the index 0, 1, 2. That thing will pop up automatically, but we start with 0 because there should always be a first screen. Then that body, that's the whole body, right? Now for the bottom navigation bar, that's where you supply the items. You tell it the current index that you are on, and then you also tell it the switch screen. Once you tap, the switch screen should happen here, and then everything will follow suit like this. So this one are just for, these are the one that actually show on the screen, right? So you have to remember that for button navigation, you need to provide the icon and a label. They are all compulsory. They are all compulsory. If you remove the label, we are going to face an error, right? So this is how to set your basic bottom navigation bar.